Racism in global development is a problem. It is a deep systemic issue.
We like to measure things in global development, but while there are many indices measuring gender equality in the sector, there are none focused on measuring racial equity. The Racial Equity Index is the very first index to measure racial equity in global development and hold the sector accountable for dismantling the systemic racism it was created to uphold.
We are a BIPOC-led collective.
We are global.
We are anti-racist.
Together, we collectively have over 50 years of experience working in the sector.
Every single person in our collective has experienced racism in global development.
The Racial Equity Index is groundbreaking and innovative and will serve as a metric for the sector in order to reduce harm and make meaningful impact in areas of racial equity.
Success looks like racial equity intentionally incorporated and integrated by organizations in a sustained manner.
Success looks like permanently shifting the dialogue around racial equity in the sector, recognizing that racial inequity and injustices sit at the root of global development.
Success looks like dismantling of systemic racism in global development, and instead creating a more just and equitable sector.
Success looks like more Black, Indigenous, and people of color in senior roles across the sector.
We are
the Racial Equity Index.
So Tina, can you please read the quote that you just read? And where is this one?
So let me read the quote, and I can't remember the name of the website, which is ridiculous, but it's a plugin, so you can put it on any browser you use. And my inspirational quote for today is, "It is not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." And there are all sorts of wrong with that, I'm sorry, because no, the load does break you down. It really does. I really dislike this. I really dislike this idea that it's that it's all about you. It's very victim blaming. Mm-hmm. So for me to kind of say the load is too heavy, it's not about the load. It's nothing about the systems which are creating the load that I'm having to carry. It's about me. I'm not strong enough to carry it. Therefore, it's a fault with me. Or I need to change my attitude. No, I'm sorry. I do not agree. I'll just say that.
I concur, Tina. That's so toxic too. And it's this rhetoric of suck it up, keep going, blah, blah, blah. It is incredibly dangerous and there's no nuance, there's no gray. It's just assuming that everyone is living under the same type of circumstances.
Absolutely. And the fault is with you. And we hear that so often when we're talking about people being, people experiencing racial discrimination, people experiencing all kinds of oppression. It's you. It's not them. It's you. If only you did this, or if only you did that. Or why are you making such a big deal of it? It's not a big thing. It's all about you. No, it's about the system. Me kind of taking it on the chin and turning that frown upside down. It's not going to change. It's not going to change the fact that the system has been set up in such a way to disenfranchise, particular communities of people.
Oh, what I wouldn't give to just feel softness within my entire body and my skin and my shoulders and my back. Oh, what I wouldn't give to feel that for months on end. We're lucky if we get hours. We're lucky if we get hours. This entire be resilient fucking narrative is so damaging. It's so damaging. And just as you said, Tina, that's what's expected of us in this sector, because we're here to do good work. We're here to do good work, meaning we have to take all of the bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
No.
We should be grateful.
We should be grateful.
Yeah, because we should be grateful to be doing this work.
Not only should you be grateful, but you should always see the bright side.
Of course.
It's not that bad. Everything's fine. Don't even worry about it. Just don't even listen to what they're saying. Don't even pay attention to these systems that we all live in and we have to kind of navigate
This is what we're talking about when we say that we are fucking tired. We are tired, we are tired, we are tired. Because in spite of what this sector would have us believe that progress is being had and being made, it's not. And we continue having to swallow and ingest and carry within our bodies all of this bullshit, all of it. And somehow we are expected to be productive. We are expected to be grateful. We're expected to be happy. We're expected to be thriving. In what universe? In what universe?
Because we're 2D, right? We're 2D. So we don't, we're hollow. We don't have all the bits inside us that make us human, that mean that we feel. We don't have any of that. So we're expected to just smile and grin and bear it and get on with the work. Because again, we should be grateful. We're here to do the work. I love what you just said, Uma, about carrying it within our bodies, because I don't think people, unless you're people who experience it, so people like us, if you don't experience oppression day in and day out, if you don't experience racial inequity and racial injustice day in and day out, you don't know what that does to a person. You don't know what that does to your soul. You don't know what it does to you physically. You don't know what it does to your mind, and it does a lot. And people seem to think you step into a situation, you might have an experience, you step out and you're the same person you were when you stepped in. No, you're not, because, we go back to this quote, you're carrying more. Which again is why that quote is so annoying. You're carrying more because, that experience has changed you and marked you, and it stays with you. And there's not enough recognition or understanding of that. I think if there were, then for someone to say, get over it, or the past is the past, they wouldn't say that. If they really had experienced that, they would not be able to bring themselves to say that.
But this has been well documented, this idea, especially for Black folks, that Black folks have a higher pain tolerance, they have thicker skin. Literally, if we look at the history of medical racism, it's so well documented that is an idea that doctors still carry in their heads.
They're still teaching.
They're still teaching this. They're still teaching this. This brings me to the fact that, we have our anniversary event coming up in a couple of weeks. And last year we did a week-long event, multiple sessions. We felt, I think, and I don't want to speak for the collective, but it was a celebration of 1 year together. And in the planning of how we were going to ring in our anniversary as a collective, it became very clear quickly this year that we are beyond empty in our spirits, in our energy, in our capacity. We are beyond empty. Let me remind anyone who listens to this, we are still all a volunteer collective after 2 years. We are still all BIPOC people doing this work amongst life, family, divorce, health issues, other family issues, jobs, racist work environments. The list goes on and on and on and on and on, and we're still here. So if you're wondering why we're not doing a week-long celebration and holding space, it's because we just don't have the capacity. We don't.
I, for one, don't have it in me this year anyway. I don't have it in me. I knew that from probably February. So, this dance of performative allyship is old and tired, and I'm not engaging.
Yeah, it's really, I'm thinking back to last year, and I'm thinking back to some of the sessions we held, that I was really appreciative that we were able to do them, especially the sessions where we spoke about joy and the sessions where we spoke about visioning for the future. And I was like, great, we are kind of creating space to do both things, to sit in joy and to vision something different, because we never have the opportunity or the space to do that. And I was really engaged and excited about that and celebrating our ability to do that. And coming into this year, yeah, I'm finding it really difficult to generate the same level of excitement, to kind of sit in that space of joy and to sit in that space of reimagining for the future that we were able to create last year. It's really, really difficult because I don't have the energy, the bandwidth. Again, I'm going to keep talking about this quote. My load is too heavy. And also because over the past year, I've seen very little that has excited me and enthused me. Very little in terms of shift and change. If anything, it feels harder. I don't know if you all feel that. If anything, it feels harder. It feels like we're pushing more, we're pushing more, or there's more resistance to it. And, as you said, it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
The resistance, that's what I'm feeling too. Like there is literally, I feel like people who are resistant to the reality of anti-racism and the reality that this is the direction that the global development sector needs to look in. I feel like they've built this narrative of how it's too inward looking, it's too hyper focused, it's not broad enough, and then they stick by it as if it's some badge to wear on their shoulder of like, I am intersectional, I just don't think we should be focusing on race only. It's too, what did I hear the other day? It's like we're looking at our belly buttons. I'm not even joking, right? Well, and I say this, with the fact that we have this year in our anniversary event, one external speaker, a group of speakers from NANSHE and Decolonize MSF. And if we look at an organization like Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, and we look at the fact that they have been called out very publicly in the past. So this was even before 2020. And they have also, said that they're doing the work, they're on a journey, they're, cue in all of the excuses and the platitudes that an organization can give, they have given. And yet, and yet with Decolonize MSF, this letter that was signed by over 1,000 people within the MSF network, whether they be former employees, staff members, calling for real change. And yet just a couple of weeks ago, another Guardian article about MSF profiting off of harmful images, just a couple of weeks ago. And so this resistance, this resistance and the fatigue and all of it, it's just, I don't even know what to say. But that is a session that we're holding because that story needs to be told, and that we need to face the reality that change has not happened. It hasn't, because if it had, we would be feeling that. We would be feeling the effects of the shifts of power, and we are not feeling it. I had a chance to sit down with Monica from NANSHE and Decolonize MSF to talk about the session that Monica and Nabila are hosting during our anniversary event. But can you just tell me a little bit about Decolonize MSF and where it started for you?
Yeah. So how did I join Decolonize MSF? I was one of the over 1,000 people who signed the open letter to management called Beyond Words that came out in 2020. I had just started in MSF, actually, even though I was not new to AID, I was new to MSF. And honestly, that kind of letter I would have probably signed any organization I've worked in, because in my entire career, those same tenets of white supremacy, of colonialism, neocolonialism, but also of sexism, supremacy lives in aid. So I signed, and then the way that group and even that letter came to be is that it started with a WhatsApp group, which is, I also think, really incredible about the moment we're in, is the parallels that have happened inside of the aid industry, but also in the broader world. There's like a similar pattern that happened of people mobilizing via technology and social media. And then in those spaces, particularly in this WhatsApp group, a couple of people wrote an open letter. Well, they wrote a letter and then it became open, and then they were shocked by how many people signed, and then this WhatsApp group grew, and I was one of those people who joined in that rush.
Wow. For all of the pervasive and insidious racism and racial violence that exists within global development, it's still not talked about with the depth and the persistence that it needs to be talked about. And although, all of us within the Racial Equity Index know of Decolonize MSF and know the letter and the report that came out, and have seen the Guardian article that just came out a couple, 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
But why is it that we haven't heard more of what is happening, and why is it that we haven't heard more? Because when you submitted your proposal for putting on a panel session for the anniversary event, which we chose to dial down just because of our capacity as volunteers, so you're the only kind of external speaker. Decolonize MSF is the only external speaker for the anniversary event, and we think it's critical that the story gets told. Why is it not out there more?
Well, I think given the formation of this group, right, it clearly was, although there are people who probably think it's a giant conspiracy, it was a very organic, unplanned, I don't even want to call it initiative, space. That's what I call it, is Decolonize MSF to me is a space that exists virtually on different platforms, because from the WhatsApp, then there was different channels we moved to. And then now I just have all of these interactions with different people over all kinds of modes. Some I'm talking to in calls like this, some are emails, some I get, random GIFs from, but it's really a weird thing, because it's not an entity like a group. It's not an NGO. We haven't organized in that way. We've maintained the fact that it's very decentralized, and those who had been involved at the beginning were very strong in wanting that to be the structure, for better or for worse. But because of that, in having a leaderless movement, I think it's also taken time for people to wonder, can it also be, which we write about in the report, can it be a leaderful movement? Who is able to actually say they're doing things because of Decolonize MSF? Who's able to put their face with this? And it was really until the report that me and my co-author kind of made this choice, because there were many people who felt unsafe doing so. They felt absolutely and there were very real experiences of retaliation. And I've had retaliation even since being public with this work. Some of that also is a factor of how people are weighing their safety in this. But I will say for myself, I'm from the global north. I'm American from the US. I have a lot of protections that are there for me, and certainly have privileges, although I've also experienced racism, sexism, all of the isms, as you will. So how do you make that compromise of really putting yourself there and taking risk, which I think is also what comes to the topic that both Nabila and I are really excited about. Oh, and I guess that's also the other thing is, for me, a lot of my work has been with Decolonize MSF, but I've always been someone who connects with others. And that's how I found and met, Nabila from NANSHE, and also what inspired us both, because she is also like this, no one can take on this work alone. there aren't enough of us who are fighting for anti-racism. We really have to forge these bonds, and we need to look outside of some of the organizational and siloed biases we get in the sector, right? Like, I mean, and I see that also in Decol MSF, the tendency, even though we want to disrupt the system, we are formatted by where we came. So the idea of, can people understand from outside? How do we build these relationships? If you haven't been doing it in your day-to-day work, how do you start to step out and build that, you know, in your outside of work life? It's not instant. So I am a big believer in that. And that's really where I want to go. And I'm happy I've met Nabila and have been able to do my work with NANSHE, and then both these spaces, it's kind of let me be brave. And that's how we reached out to REI.
What is a space that you want people to share in within this session that we're having at the anniversary event?
What I hope then a conference or an event that REI would do is build, using that to leverage and build a space where more of us can connect and learn from each other, and also get support from one another, because man, these are dark times we're in. Yeah, it's great we have the publicity right now in Decolonize MSF, but I just finished a really tough stint of some, retaliation. I know many people are exhausted from burnout. And I think generally in the political climate, many of us are wondering what came out of the last 2 years. Have there been unintended harms? How do we go forward and try to actually get to some of the intractable things? I think a lot of us are nursing these questions and exhausted. So I hope in a space together in our session, we can look and remember that there are things we are doing. We are surviving this. We have been surviving these conditions before, and will continue to. And in fact, people have been doing incredible things that we actually don't hear a lot about, because it's often unsafe, or it feels inappropriate to share. They're diffused, they're scattered. But both Nabila and I mean, we spend so much of our time talking to different survivors of sexual violence in the AIDS sector, survivors of racism, survivors of other kinds of discrimination, like related to ableism or health conditions. That people are not victims. People are going through this and doing incredible things to not only exist and fight for their existence, but also to connect and help others not go through what they did. And I think having the moments to learn from that, also, like unencumbered from the DEI language and terminology, but just in real terms of like, how do I live through this? How do I live through this without feeling like I'm selling my soul? These are the questions I'm hearing people ask, informally. I have them too. So I think we have to find answers collectively,
For anyone that listens, you want to celebrate with us in a way that respects our capacity and our exhaustion and our humanity, and spend time with us, then join us on the 25th of June. Follow the Eventbrite link and you can register. It's like one sitting. So plan your coffee, tea, meals, and it's a couple of hours. The first session is as many of the collective members as Racial Equity Index that we can get on one call, just sharing what we've been working on the past year, where we are, where we're headed. The second session is Decolonize MSF and NANSHE, and it will be led by Monica and Nabila, and there's more information about them on the Eventbrite. And then the third session is a space for a few members of the Racial Equity Index to hold space with you all, specifically Black people, Indigenous people, and people of culture, to witness ourselves and hold each other in what we all are collectively experiencing. And so that's it. That's our anniversary event. And we have sponsored tickets. There's a couple of people that have sponsored tickets, and we'll be releasing them. If you want to sponsor tickets, please do that so we can make the event as accessible as possible. And we will see you all there. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Bag.
Thanks, loves.
Thanks, everyone.